For over 35 years, Todd Garner has overseen blockbuster films like Con Air, Anger Management, Triple X, 13 Going on 30, and the Mortal Kombat franchise.
Why are they letting you make these movies?
Join Todd as he shares tips and stories from the front lines of producing in Hollywood.
I'm Adam Sandler.
I'm Rebel Wilson.
This is Jeff Probst.
I'm Kaylee Cuoco.
I'm Eli Roth.
This is Marlon Wayans.
Hey, it's Ed Helms.
This is Shay Mitchell.
Hey everybody, this is Kevin James, and this is The Producer's Guide.
The Producer's Guide.
The Producer's Guide.
The Producer's Guide with Todd Garner.
Todd Garner.
Todd Garner.
Todd Garner.
What a combination.
Welcome to the Producer's Guide podcast. I'm Todd Garner. In this episode, I am thrilled to have Lindsay Hadley, the visionary CEO and co-founder of the Harbor Fund, a groundbreaking venture-style nonprofit film fund. Lindsay is on a mission to finance socially urgent films and television projects that often slip through the cracks of traditional funding. Under her leadership, Harbor Fund has emerged as a powerful bridge between philanthropy and entertainment, connecting innovative filmmakers with mission-driven donors to bring impactful stories to life. Before funding Harbor Fund, Lindsay was an integral part of Global Citizen, where she helped launch the Global Citizen Festival and the End of Polio concert, bringing together world leaders and advocates to create tangible global impact. She also funded Hadley Impact Consulting, guiding high-profile individuals and organizations on mission-driven growth. As an executive producer on the upcoming film Uncharitable, featuring Edward Norton, and with several exciting projects set to release in 2026, Lindsay continues to push the boundaries of storytelling. Her innovative platform, FilmRaise, has generated over 1 billion media impressions around social impact storytelling, partnering with organizations like the Nelson Mandela Foundation. Recognized in Utah Business 40 Under 40, Lindsay's remarkable career spans philanthropy, technical startups, and global advocacy, including collaborations with cultural icons like Lady Gaga and Kenneth Cole. Well, join me now as we dive into Lindsay's journey, her insights on the intersection of film and philanthropy, and how we can all contribute to a better world through impactful storytelling. Enjoy. All right, I'm here with Lindsay Hadley. Hello, Lindsay. How are you today?
Hi, I'm good, thank you.
Are you in Utah? Is that where your headquarters are? Fantastic. Well, you have quite an interesting company. I wanted to chat with you today because it's such an interesting way to make stuff, and the reason you're making it, and the philanthropic nature of it, and the fund. So we're going to get into all that. Walk me through kind of you growing up. Did you grow up in Utah?
I did. I grew up in the mountains in Park City.
Oh, wow. Beautiful, beautiful. So walk me through your interest in philanthropy, kind of where that began and how you got so interested in giving back, and specifically how you kind of got into the entertainment part of it, because I do know that you did have a student project that you could have done the normal route, and you went and did something that involved entertainment and grossed the most money of anybody who had ever done a fundraising campaign. So kind of walk me through how you, growing up in Utah, got to the place where you wanted to be in the world of philanthropy.
Well, Todd, thank you so much for having me, and also for the generous questions to go back in time and review one's life. It's really a treasure to think back on some of these moments. But yeah, I when you ask like where did this desire to give back or do service, and I think it comes from my faith community. I was raised in like a really conservative Mormon, small town in Utah, and is such a high value in that community on service and giving back and being other centric and giving of oneself and diminishing suffering, and all that is just like such a big frame of the faith in the community. But I never imagined where I'd be. The irony of my career is that I never imagined I'd have a career, because as a Mormon girl, there was no women in my worldview that had major careers. Like I had an aunt who was a therapist, and then a grandma who was a teacher, and another aunt who was a bus driver. But there weren't like really women in major ambitious careers that I had seen, but most women were stay-at-home moms. And so I remember when I was going to college, my sweet dad, who I adore, was like, I asked him like, what should I study? And he said, it doesn't really matter. You're going to be a stay-at-home mom, so just pick something you enjoy. So to be here, the irony of that is uncanny in that it was my LDS community that got me into this space, but definitely not my LDS community that put the trajectory where it would go. But I just started out doing social good. I was in like service clubs. I was the president of the Rotaract Club, which is like the college version of Rotary International. And as you mentioned, I ended up putting on a benefit concert. This will date me, but we put on a concert with Ben Folds 5. And we raised $100,000 in a night as college kids, and it got us an international award. They flew me to Birmingham, England, to like receive an award at the Rotary International Conference. And so, I found that I had a real knack for producing, and I realized that music and entertainment were a great way to galvanize an audience. Like, you have a captive audience because they're coming for the entertainment. Now you get to espouse your cause. And so I ended up then doubling down on that strategy and suddenly became like the charity concert lady, and found myself later as the founding executive producer of a thing called the Global Citizen Festival. And I brought the majority of their first money the first few years, and was also the founding chief development officer. And so as the only female executive in the early days, and as a linchpin in building that, and Global Citizen, it was a really incredible education and learning time, and of curating who I became and where I am now. But ultimately, my experience there was significant. We ended up becoming like the Live Aid of our generation, with the biggest artists in the world. We leveraged billions of dollars for the world's poor, and 60,000 people on the Great Lawn, and 33 million people watching live. And I worked with the biggest artists. So whether it was Beyonce, Coldplay, Ed Sheeran, whoever was on stage, we were like amplifying all this good. And eventually like built my own boutique agency called Hadley Impact for 10 years, where I was like a special service agency for social good, and a lot of A-list celebrities and ultra high net worth families and multinational corporations and NGOs are my clients. And that brought me to filmmaking. It was kind of this organic progression, I think.
Walking back a step, you went to BYU?
I didn't, actually. I went to Orange County. I played college soccer and had a scholarship.
Oh, what position?
I was a left fullback. Did you play soccer?
I was a goalkeeper for 19 years.
Oh, we would have been good buddies back in the
That's right. I need that. Love the fullbacks. Love the fullbacks. And did you go on a mission?
I didn't. It wasn't as common for girls to, serve Mormon missions. But I love that you know a bit about Mormons. So you must have met a few.
And when you started the global, what was the global
Citizen Festival?
Global Citizen. It changed names at some point, correct?
Yeah, originally it was good memory or good research. It was originally called the Global Poverty Project, and then later became Global Citizen Festival.
So the Global Citizen Festival, how did you choose who received the money that you raised from the concerts? And where were the concerts? Like, where did they start? Did they start in Park City? And then did you go international? How did that all come about?
Well, the first festival took place in Perth, Australia, and because we did it during the eve of Chuggum, the Commonwealth Dignitary World Meeting. So all the prime ministers and presidents, including the Queen of England, were converging in Perth. And so the first one we did there, we had John Legend headline, and we had a lot of national Australian artists perform, and we had people like Hugh Jackman as an ambassador and all that kind of stuff. And then the next one we did was in Central Park in New York City. We took it to the World's Oyster, because the first event we did under the banner of the Global Poverty Project, we raised $118 million for polio eradication from this one event, from our unique strategy. And that what we did is we, instead of relying upon ticket sales, merchandise, sponsorship, donations, and merchandise, like anything that would like bring revenue, we actually leveraged constituency. We had people sign a petition to win the tickets, and then we used that to show voter constituency to the then Prime Minister, a woman named Julia Gillard, and which unlocked a foreign aid gift into polio eradication, which was matched by Bill and Melinda Gates. And so that's how we raised $118 million.
For polio eradication, then how did you choose other charities to give to? Was it just a board or the most need, or how did it come about?
It was in that case at Global Citizen, we used the framework of the Sustainable Development Goals and at the time the Millennial Development Goals of the UN. And so causes that fit that umbrella. But candidly, we picked ones that had celebrities backing them, because if music artists and celebrities would then end up on our stages and events, and they got behind us because we got behind them, and it was a virtuous cycle that allowed us to raise sponsorship and galvanize the public. And so a lot of it was very celebrity driven, which is not too different than what we're doing at Harper today, just with film.
So you're doing this, it's hugely successful. Where does the idea of now starting to produce films come about?
Yeah. So fast forward and a couple years into Global Citizen, I think it was my fourth year, I was being headhunted almost weekly from because I brought them $17 million in 4 years as really the only full-time fundraiser outside of the CEO, Hugh Evans. We had like some volunteers and board members and people that help, but we didn't really have like a business development team much at all at that time. And so that got on people's radar. And if you can bring capital, we were very willfully employed. And so I ended up getting headhunted really regularly. And then I built this boutique agency called Hadley Impact Consulting. And I took all the best offers I got and made them all my clients. I was just like, hey, instead of coming to work for you full time, what if I serviced you as a client? And they said yes. And so we're off to the races. And decade in, I got involved in filmmaking through just kind of seeing. I had actually Stacey Sher and her husband Carrie Brown. Stacey's one of those prolific Hollywood female producers. She did all the Tarantino films. She did Aaron Brockovich, Gattaca, Garden State, some of the best stuff ever made. And I was in her office and I was looking around and I was talking to her and her husband. I was like, oh my gosh, I have such a career crush on you because your films, like, they have a shelf life. Like I watched Garden State like 20 years later and it was still so awesome. You know what I mean? And that music and it, like the nostalgia of the music. And I'm like, man, this has bigger reach. It has a longer shelf life than a festival or a campaign or a live event. Like they're over the next day. And so I just told her I was envious, and she said, "Well, you're an effing producer. Why don't you just go make movies?" And so this permission from this baller female producer, I guess, that she endowed me with, gave me the audacity to try. And I executive produced my first film. Ed Norton starred in, and Stephen Gyllenhaal directed, called Uncharitable, based on Dan Pallotta, his book and his TED Talk that's been seen by tens of millions of people. And that was my foray into filmmaking. And then after that, it just kind of tripled down, and I produced a film that'll be out this year called Orphan Myth. And I became a producer and executive producer and got into the weeds of learning how to make at least a documentary. And then eventually got asked to bring funding to scripted films. And then after I executive produced a film that'll also be out this year called Flash Before the Bang. I EP'd it with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. It'll be out in the fourth quarter this year. After I did that, I started getting really inundated because, these big studios were calling me saying, "Hey, can you get that free money thing for us?" I was leveraging philanthropic dollars, which was unique to the film industry, not to documentaries. That's been happening before you and I were born, Todd, but getting philanthropic dollars to a scripted narrative in television, that's an idea as time has come, and there's people doing it, but it was new and percolating. And so I just saw when I was getting such demand signals, from Leonardo DiCaprio's production team to Matt Damon and Ben Affleck asking me to come work with them when I was 2 minutes into film, I thought, well, you know what? Like, I think I have something really formidable here. I think I should come up with a model that's not just eat what you kill. And so that's where the Harbor Fund came from. It was inspired by a model I'd seen in social impact investing done by Jacqueline Novogratz, which is called the Acumen Fund. She started it 10 years ago, and she's deployed hundreds of millions of dollars into impact investing through this elegant structure. And so we just were the first to bring that structure to film and television.
Right. So how does Harbor Fund work? What is the structure? Like when you're telling Matt and Ben what it is, what is the pitch?
So Harbor Fund is the first of its kind venture capital shaped film fund that's a nonprofit or a 501c3. And how it works is benefactors donate into the fund. They get a tax deduction. They pick a specific project that they're aligned with from a cause perspective, because we only make social good projects. So think Blood Diamond, Schindler's List, Hotel Rwanda, Aaron Brockovich. They donate and we give them a tax deduction and they become an executive producer depending on how much they gave. And then we take an equity position. The fund, the nonprofit now, is the investor. And any returns that this for-profit film has that we invest in, that we come in pari passu with the terms of anyone else on the cap table. We're just investors. And the principal and the carry, and that any of the returns come back into the fund, and then we reinvest it into future films. So it's this perpetual evergreen war chest for good. And that's the model. We just started a year and a half ago.
And the idea is that filmmakers, celebrities, actors, writers, directors, they can come to you with projects that speak to them. I know Chris Pine had a project that really spoke to him and his upbringing about housing insecurity. And so, and he did a documentary about that. So how do people approach you, and what does that look like? And at what stage do you want to get involved? Do you want to get involved when the movie's all put together? Are you developing things, and how are you picking your projects?
Yeah, exactly. So we originally were picking them based on organic, my 20-year career, relationships and networking, and people when they heard we were in the space calling us. And now, it's once you've deployed, tens of millions of dollars of real capital in a year in a really hugely struggling down market in any industry, you get on everybody's radar. So we are inundated with pitches. It's actually quite overwhelming. So now it's a matter of saying a lot of no's, really.
And so what is the bar then that makes it from a no to a yes for you?
Oh, yeah. So the criteria is really, first off, social good. Like you have to kind of think to yourself, does it make sense for tax exempt dollars to be going to this in any capacity? And it can be pretty wide. It could be, something that just is like an empathy machine. It doesn't like Anthony Bourdain's TV show, for example, that could work. It's anthropological, and helps you humanize people in different cultures and helps you explore the world and sees we're different, we're similar in so many ways. So it doesn't have to be like donate now, it doesn't have to be like on the nose social good, but you wouldn't be making, Game of Thrones or Fast and Furious or a horror movie, right? And so that's kind of the, social good angle. And then secondly, we're now at the point in the fund where we only do A-list attached. And also if that A-list talent actually engages with our network, our events, our community. So if they're attached, but they don't get involved in any way, we've found zero luck in raising money. If they come to our events in any capacity, we've found 100% that we've found money for them. So we've done private events, salon events, dinners, lunches, brunches, and they come to our big Harbor Film Forum that we produce. And we've had a lot of success. I think the least amount that when a talent is engaged with us was $100,000, and the most is, 12 million that we've got coming for a project. So it's really working. And so we're getting now inbound so much A-list talent that are producing that didn't get their project funded automatically by their studio first look deal. They're now coming to us in droves.
And you have a few big Harbor Fund events throughout the year. You had one recently in Montana with Kevin Costner. Walk me through kind of how that came about and what is the purpose of those big events?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks. You're good research, Todd. Good job. The Harbor Film Forum is our annual gallery. We've been doing 2 a year so far. We started only a year and a half ago, so this will be our third one coming up this summer. But essentially, we have usually like a dozen A-list celebrities come, and they come and they pitch their projects, right? Because I just kind of explained the criteria. And think like a benevolent Shark Tank, and then we have 4 days and 3 nights. So like it's also like adult summer camp, I say, because there's a lot of downtime. Like in the morning is the programming, and after lunch there's just hanging out. And so deals get done in pickleball courts and horseback rides and hot tubs because people are all jamming and hanging out with each other, and there's like a relational equity being built. And so it's a really cool experience. It's $100,000 to be a donor at $100,000 to attend. So it's for our donors who have done that level or higher, which is really great. So if you donate $100,000 during the year, you can attend the forum. If you haven't donated yet, but you can donate and then come and see the projects, and like a kid in the candy shop, pick one. And so that's kind of how it happens. But how it came about is just, I'm taking my 20-year event production fundraising experience and applying it to this subset of issues.
And you're also introducing high net worth individuals with A-level celebrities that can do deals and other things. And it's also just a great networking opportunity for like-minded people.
Totally. You capture that. I mean, really, at the end of the day, I kind of joke that Harbor, more than it is a fund, an investment vehicle, which isn't an investment for the investors, but a nonprofit fund, is that it's actually like a network or like a members club almost, like there's so much, it's so community driven and ecosystem driven and relationally driven for sure, because we do so many analog experiences.
And where did you get your love of film? Where did that come from? Because I would imagine being in a traditional Mormon family in a small town, you weren't exposed to a lot. So how did your love of film come about?
It's a great question. No one's asked me that before. Yeah, we had a tiny little, you know, uh, theater in my small little one horse open town, and it was like a very rare occasion to go to the theater. We didn't even have television. My family, because we were living in like a remote area, we had a VHS. My family wasn't like against television. It just, we literally didn't have access to it in this remote part of Utah. And later my dad got satellite and I remember seeing like The Simpsons for the first time, But anyway, so I didn't get exposure to it, but I can say like from the youngest age, I remember seeing stories and just being so enthralled. And like, no matter what I watched, I like suddenly like played the role of what I saw. And when we did our event with Kevin Costner, I actually shared this, but as little kids, we played cowboys and Indians, in the mountains. And, we had like wooden bow and arrows we created and little wooden guns, and we'd run around and build forts. And I lived in the mountains on like, hundreds of acres of private property on the Upper Provo River. And like, that was like just what you did in the 90s. And so I remember the first time I saw Dances with Wolves, it absolutely was a paradigm shift for me about how I felt about the indigenous community and culture. Because before that, we always wanted to be the cowboy because the Indians were the bad guys in our frame, and as little kids who didn't know any better. And here Kevin Costner depicts them as the good guys and made me fall so in love with them. I'm like, I want to be the Indians. Like, I never want to be the cowboys. Those guys are the dirt bags, So it just had so much influence to change the way I felt about an entire group of people, the empathy and the resilience and the beauty of their culture. Like, because I was taken on this hero's journey through the story of Lieutenant Dan Dunbar, I like ended up falling in love with an entire group of people, and it's never left me. I'm like obsessed with Native American art and music and culture and the people. And, I think all of us are, we live through narrative, and we're story making animals. Like, we live through story, even the story I'm sharing now, my story, and even the story about how I feel about you when I get on this call. I'm like, wow, Todd's so impressive. He's just great research, is a good interviewer. Like, well, I'm so lucky to meet him. And then that story, you're going to feel my appreciation for you, and it's going to change our entire lived experience. It won't it? Right. So I'm really a big believer in the power of story and narrative change at scale. I believe it's the most powerful thing we do as human beings. And we just want to hijack the most powerful PR engine in the world, that is Hollywood, for good. That's what we're trying to do at Harbor Fund.
And here you said you didn't go on a mission. You are a missionary. You are spreading the word every
You're
day
so sweet.
through your fun. Now you've done documentaries, you're doing scripted. Do you have a preference for television series, documentaries, theatrical, streaming, or is it really about the project and about the message, and let everything else find its way after that? Because your investors are investing in a charitable fund. They're not expecting a return. They're expecting their money to do good, to find little Lindsay in the mountains and change her complete perspective on indigenous people, or fund polio, or housing insecurity, whatever it is. So is it the message only, or do you, in a perfect world, hope that you get a big theatrical release? What is the promise to your community?
That's such a good question. Harbor Fund is really mostly interested in matching the philanthropist with the creative. And so what modality it takes, whether it's a doc or TV show or live unscripted or scripted movie, is maybe less important, because the most elegance that we found in Harbor Fund is we're allowing patrons of the arts, truly. Like, the Medicis all gave us Michelangelo, who provided the Sistine Chapel for the world. Like, now you can give the World Hotel Rwanda, through Harbor Fund. And I think but of course, when I look at the sustainability hat of Harbor as a fund, I want to have the biggest possible theatrical releases and studio-backed projects that have significant print and advertising or P&A for getting out there. And so we want to have as commercially viable projects as possible because that is an indicator of impact for us, But we have a cacophony and range of all of those things. We recognize some of these will, reach a more niche audience and do good in a certain way, and then but you hope you have major juggernaut successes because that's how you really can move the needle.
And I would imagine in connecting these people through their philanthropy and their patronage and finding causes, have you found that you're making some real significant relationships? Have Ben and Matt found like-minded, high net worth people that have gone beyond? It doesn't have to be specific to them, but have you found that those relationships now are expanding beyond just these one projects?
Yeah, that is probably the greatest fruit, if you will, of Harbor, is that essentially the relationships. I mean, this is it's such a different frame, what we're trying to do. I mean, imagine, Hollywood, when I first got into the entertainment industry and filmmaking, I was horrified to hear Hollywood producers, big ones, call it dumb money. And they intentionally were predatory on families that were naive about investing in family offices. And there's a wake of dead and wounded high net worth people who've lost their shorts in filmmaking. There's all these jokes about it. Fastest way to be a millionaire Hollywood is to start out as a billionaire. There's something about it that just felt so predatory and transactional. I genuinely, the reason I built Harbor is I wanted to get into film, and when I saw how often people lost their money, I realized I couldn't sleep at night if my friend's money was going to go to money movie heaven, So I was if they expect a return and I couldn't get it, it would kill me. So I was these are my friends. They're not an ATM. I love these people. I will feel so responsible. So if I can be upfront about it and say, you're never getting your money back. Thank you so much. You're losing your money in a wonderful way, and be, really straightforward about it. I felt like that was much more elegant to have them come in and care about the story and the creative and the impact it's having on the world than commercially looking at it. But then some of these projects could be commercially viable. So how do we make that square with the philanthropic dollars? Just a bunch of filmmakers pocket all the cash if it goes well? That didn't feel good. And so I think this model is really an idea as time has come. We're really excited about it. And the tailwind we've had and the success we've had so far so quickly is kind of an indicator. I think it's really seems, as Mark Burnett called it, dumb smart, who's on our board.
And so your investors, is it an ever-growing pool of people, or do you find that the same group of people are really the most active in this endeavor?
It's a bit of both. It's ever growing, and the same guys keep giving. They keep on giving. So that's heartwarming and encouraging of the sustainability of this thing, because the same people who've given before want to be there and give again. But yeah, we want to raise $100 million in the next 2 years, and we want to be in the top 1% of independent film financing. So we are just constantly trying to find those with capital who want to, believe in this narrative change at scale and want to be a part of what we're doing, from their tax-exempt dollars that are parked, to do good. And I think a lot of them are nodding. They're yeah, I some of them they have different things they're called to, and it's really a matchmaking game, So say somebody, for example, one of our donors, super passionate about mental health, and we have a project that we're doing with Katie Kirk and Bradley Cooper called The Body Keeps the Score. It's based on a New York selling book about trauma in the body and mental health. And, the donor cares a lot about this issue, and they want to be involved. And the reality is they've been donating in all kinds of ways, interventions of all kinds to address the mental health crisis and epidemic. But the reality is, you can't just do intervention. You have to also have some media strategy. You have to market your cause. If you want to change what people do, you have to change the way they feel first. And so this is a really powerful tool for that. And these really major, significant ultra high net worth donors, they get it. And it takes a sophisticated donor to get Harbor, because some are really myopic, and they just think I only want to know how many, $1 per vaccine. They want something very measurable. I want, a clean water well, and how many people does it give water to? And that's awesome. And I spent my career literally raising hundreds of millions of dollars doing that. It's just that in this case, all of those sector leaders are benefited from, I would argue that, Schindler's List did more than all of the organizations combined combating anti-Semitism. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, so, and it's like a rising tide that lifts all boats in the harbor, right? That's the pun intended. It's like they all benefit when a meta narrative like that comes out and benefits their cause. Like the movie Taken, I felt that. I was raising money and bringing awareness to anti-trafficking in 2008 through 2010, and that's right when the movie Taken came out. And I'll never forget, I was running around talking to business owners and donors and people and explaining there's modern day slavery, like what is trafficking? And after that movie came out, I'm like, have you seen the movie Taken? They're like, yeah. I'm like, that's happening in our backyard. And suddenly we could be right with each other, you know? So, I mean, the power of that, the lever of that is pretty astounding. So it's cool to see so many people nodding their head and getting behind it. But it does take a sophisticated donor that understands this. How do you measure the impact of the movie Pay It Forward or Rain Man? How do you put a price tag on that? How do you show, well, this many people stopped judging people with autism when Love on the Spectrum came out? You know what I mean? Like, you can't really quantify that. It's too complicated and too high at scale. It's too part of the zeitgeist for us to really tell the story properly, but we can do some. There's some great anecdotal evidence of some great impact and outcomes. Policies that change, money that moves in the sector, companies that get involved because of a movie. I mean, I can sit with any donor and I can do a killer case for support of why this makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Angel Studios did with their first movie, Sound of Freedom. I mean, it just put them on the map, and it also raised awareness for human trafficking in that respect.
Yeah.
And in the same thing you're saying, which is, you know, you can raise money for a cause, but if you're sitting down with Katie Couric and Bradley Cooper, you're going to get a lot of publicity on that cause and get a lot of eyeballs to understand that cause. And by having something that moves you, you're going to associate a feeling to that cause, as opposed to just someone, you know, blandly kind of pitching you why you should give money for that cause. I think the plan is very, very sound.
Thank you.
So when you have a big hit, that money then goes back into the fund to then fund more projects. So as the phrase goes, the tide lifts all ships. That's the plan, correct? You're going to keep recycling the money back into the fund to keep the fund growing and being able to disperse that money to bigger and bigger projects or more projects.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the idea, is that just like it comes back and then Harbor can keep reinvesting and finding new deals. And then it's this virtuous cycle. Of course, our thesis is that in a portfolio, you're diversified. So some of these will be absolute loss leaders. Some will do okay. We'll get some money back, and some will be portfolio makers. And that's the premise. That's the strategy.
And for the filmmakers, they're getting their passion projects made, the things that are dear to their heart that they care about. And then your investors are getting to see their causes being put in the limelight, and they're a part of this community.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And they, you know, they get to actually see the outcomes of those stories out in the world, you know, and it's and various skills. And again, we haven't released any. We have one thing that Harbor's invested in that's coming out, it's on Angel Studios. It's called Miracle, and it's about medical miracles. Yeah, and like the anecdotal evidence back of how it's changing people's lives is just so rewarding for those who are involved in underwriting that.
In your community of the Harbor Fund, and you said it's $100,000 to come to the big festivals, but you also said you have smaller dinners and things like that. So
Yeah.
you're also curating people that you think would be like-minded to figure out how to get these things funded and put together.
That's right. That's right. It's all about matchmaking, right? Like finding donors that we think this subject or this subset of issues that they've been already combating or addressing funds or allocating funds for. It's pretty cool because, you know, occasionally we get someone who just loves what we're doing altogether, and we've had some just contribute like unearmarked. But for the most part, we're actually putting people in on the causes they already care about, and we're just letting them amplify it.
And because you have such a wealth of knowledge, having been doing this for so many years, when a pitch comes in, you can know pretty quickly who probably would want to invest, and vice versa. If somebody comes and says, hey, human trafficking is very important to me, you have enough knowledge now and enough relationships to say, oh, there's a documentary that Bono wants to make or you know, whatever.
Exactly. It's like the culmination of my career coming into one great whole, essentially now.
Very, very cool. So what has been your biggest success to date in your mind? And how would you measure that?
In Harbor Fund?
Yeah.
You know, because our projects haven't come out yet, it's hard to call them successes yet, right? But I mean, you know, we're part of these insanely cool projects like that I'm so excited about. So it's hard to say, but I think I'd probably say, and maybe this is what you were looking for, is this more qualitative answer, but I think the greatest success is the caliber of human beings that we've galvanized around Harbor. They're so high capacity and so high character, whether it's like our board members or the filmmakers we're investing in or our team, our donors, they're exceptional human beings. And I just like am stunned by it every day. I just can't believe how, well, I kind of can, I guess, because we built a good thing, but also like I'm inviting like the best of best people of a 20-year career into it. So it's also like this virtuous cycle. And then those good people know the other good people. And we also have a really strong no asshole policy, you know? I mean, Katie Kirk said that at our last event. She got up and said, wow, Lindsay, like there's literally no assholes here. I don't know how you did that, you know? And I like teared up because I remember early on in building Harbor Fund, there was a donor who had pledged $1 million and donated $100,000 to come to our first event on Necker Island with Richard Branson. And this is next gen wealth inheritor. And this person was treating my team nasty, speaking really poorly behind our backs, very expectant. And, you know, I knew that person struggled with some of that. But there was just this moment that I had this clarity of like, oh my gosh, I'm like capitulating this really toxic dynamic because this person treats people like this because no one gives this person a feedback loop because everyone wants the money. And I'm like, I'm using this human being. Like, I can't do that. In addition to that, I don't want to fly in the ointment. This is such a beautiful thing we're doing. And I can deal with you talking crap behind my back for $1 million. Believe me, I can totally handle that. But like, I just remember thinking like there was an ethics to it. It was like, it was immoral. I was just like, no, just take your money back. You're uninvited. And so when, 9 months later, Katie Kirk's telling me how remarkably good the people were, I was just in tears. I was like, that's $1 million compliment, like.
It's amazing.
So we really mean it and we're trying. We mess up. We're not perfect. We don't expect perfection from anybody, but we're trying to get people to have the right heart posture. It's really important what we're doing. The whole thing's based on trust and good intention. We're not going to be perfect. We're going to mess up. We're going to have our brokenness and our humanity show up and come out sideways. But like, you can tell when someone's showing up for others or for themselves. You can just feel it on them,
And when you're putting people together, like on a place like Necker Island, which has like roughly like 38 rooms, so it's not a huge event, are you curating it based on people? Because Richard is very about the environment, about sustainability, about energy. Are you curating it that way? Or are you curating, you just think these group of 60-some people would love to just experience this week on this island? How is that curated?
It was really more out of like creating a magical Narnia experience than it was per se what Richard specifically cared about. But like we ended up investing in Richard's son documentary about Desmond Tutu, which is now going to be out this year and with Lionsgate. So, and it's in the festival circuit right now. And we bring these people because it was like to gather, to break bread, to build relationship, and to hear about these projects. And Richard was just very generous to support us in that effort. And then we picked Montana because Kevin Costner, man, he's the ultimate cowboy.
Yeah, right. Take advantage.
Exactly. So we did it at one of these like white club, Yellowstone Club type resort places, and we take over the whole thing. It's super exclusive, and I remember like there was some little bit of coverage on our event, and I saw in the comments on the social media, someone was like, the money you would have spent on this event, you could have put into a film, like you guys are jerks, kind of thing. And I totally understand that sentiment. I think it's totally archaic and flawed because that's like saying, hey, you can be a lot cheaper if you did like if you had no overhead and did like a bake sale, and it's like, yeah, I could raise $100, or I could put on a benefit concert with Beyonce in Central Park and raise $10 million and give her half of it, and spend all this money on people's salaries, but I end up with $5 million. Which do you think, I don't know, veterans with mental health issues would prefer I do if that was the cause I was raising for? You don't want the cheapest available Band-Aid. You want the greatest potential lever that has the greatest outcome. And so putting that community together and growing the fund and drawing these people so that they come and spend time and get to know us and build relationship and write checks. Like that's what we're doing. So I can see from the outside how sometimes the optics of it, people get a little triggered. I understand that, especially in today's world when there's a lot of people in power that have been really corrupt and people who've really abused their positions and amazing privilege for sure.
Well, in creating a community, that's the most important thing because that's what's going to sustain this fund and be able to do the most good. So
that's right.
Look, I can completely understand the optics of it. The thing that's great about Richard is he does this a lot. He'll do, philanthropic tech things. He'll do an AI thing on the island. So he understands very well of what bringing a community together for philanthropy means. When do you bring in the buyers? Are you're making everything first and finishing it and then going to festivals or taking them to sale? Or are you developing scripts and then taking it out what do you prefer to do in your fund? How far down the line do you prefer to make these things before you try to potentially sell them?
I love these specific producer questions. It makes so much sense with your audience and what you're doing here. We've come in as early as development funds and as late as P&A on these projects. We've also, seen buyers and being acquired, take it, develop something, get a studio to back it, and because we're in those development funds, we are happy anytime, right? Just as soon as we can have a return, but like whatever's the best for the project, which is different needs all the time. Oh my gosh, this stuff, hold on. We look for the buyers to come in whenever it's best for the project. So, if it's a TV series, obviously early as you package it often, whenever the timing is to have it have, a return and make sure it gets distribution.
At this point, a year and a half in, how are you finding most projects are getting to you? Word of mouth, the agencies, how is it working mostly in your opinion?
It's pretty futile. We're getting hundreds and hundreds. I mean, maybe 1,000 a week submitted on our website. I don't even think anyone's looking at that at this point, so to be really honest. So if your producer friends here, like, I'm going to, it's not going to probably be an effective strategy, but, it's through relationships. Yeah. Somebody's makes an introduction. And again, we'll waste everyone's time. If they don't have an A-lister attached and that A-lister won't engage with our community, we wouldn't even probably look at it.
Well, that makes sense. And then as a filmmaker and as a producer, what's your fantasy for this? Where do you see this headed? You said you wanted to be one of the biggest global film funds out there, but be more specific. Like what is your goal in this fund?
Yeah, in the next 2 years, we want to hit 100 million so that we are in the top 1% of an independent film financing and become category king in what we're doing. Because we're the first to do this model. We want to kind of put our flag in the hill. We're oh yeah, they were the first and made enough of a market share to have people recognize that. But I mean, I hope it becomes $1 billion fund one day. I know that sounds cheeky, like Austin Powers, but I really think it's possible over time because of the perpetual and exponential nature of how we've structured it. It actually could be. And I think how remarkable if we had that kind of capital moving in this industry where we could actually inform that more projects that actually matter get told. I mean, as consumers, we're all so sick of the repeat IP and the next Toy Story 6 and the next live action, and studios are doing that because they're trying to avoid risk, right? They're totally risk averse. I've had people say to me, some of the greatest movies ever made, they're yeah, they wouldn't be made today. These films wouldn't be made today. And I just think that's a travesty. So we're really working hard on trying to change that because we believe the stories we tell are so important. So we want better stories told as soon as possible. So I hope it scales astronomically.
Is part of your plan and your fund to own to hold on to the rights of those things? Because you said a studio executive said, "Hey, give me some of that free money."
Yeah.
How would that work? So let's say you made a movie and Netflix wanted to release it, but you paid for the whole movie, and they said, "Oh, we'll release it, and then you'll own it, so you'll have the rights down the line." Is that important to you, or do you want to sell it off and keep the fund liquid in that way?
Right now, the best thing is for more, liquidity, so we have more bats on base and more impact happening. But I'm sure in the long term, we'll look at all kinds of different strategies for what is the best financial sustainable path for the fund? Yeah, it's a great question. But yeah, they were, I think, giving free money because before that, I was bringing philanthropic dollars, taking an EP fee. They were not giving any equity away. So that literally was just free money to them. What was my fee? Who wouldn't take that? I mean, Bill Gates would take that. Who wouldn't take
Sure.
that?
Absolutely.
So now we're coming in as real investors with equity, so we can see a return.
Fantastic. Well, you've created something incredible. You're
Thanks,
creating an
Todd.
amazing community, and you're
Thank
giving
you.
producers another outlet to figure out how to get their movies made. And these movies are important. And like you said, a lot of these movies probably wouldn't even get made today. So thank God you're there to help so that these important issues can be brought to light, because it's important. And you're right. There's nothing more impactful than a movie to be sitting there, or a documentary to move you to take action. And that's really important, especially now. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you so much for your encouragement and your excellent questions. And I'm really honored to be here and so grateful. This whole thing is a love letter to producers and creatives. That's what this is. It's like we see you, the cinema and the light in those in the theater is kind of like our proverbial campfire. I'm super grateful for all the filmmakers out there.
Well, I always end the interviews, and I'm so thank you for your time, and I really appreciate it. And I always end the interviews, I usually ask the question, best memory on set, but I want to alter it slightly for you because you're in such a unique position, and you said and I know what the alternate answer is, because you said there was a high net worth individual who was an asshole on Necker Island and you disinvited this person. What is your best memory of one of your community groups?
Great question. It was something that didn't happen at a live event. It was offline, but it was around the live event. So there was a filmmaker, very famous filmmaker, who had in the news said things on a political subject matter, right? And they were pretty inflammatory, and everybody basically was like, cancel this person over this, right? And then later, another filmmaker who was directly affected by those negative comments, because it was towards their community, it was dehumanizing comments. When they heard that we were working with this filmmaker, who's now uncanceled back in Hollywood, but did have a moment there a few decades ago, didn't want to be involved because this person was involved, right? And over time, in just building a relationship with this other filmmaker, their heart softened on not only our stance on how we're trying to build bridges in these moments where everyone is so canceled and we're so polarized, but ultimately, this filmmaker came along and said, "I've really changed my heart. I trust you guys. I can see that I was really inflammatory because of what's going on in the current political arena, and I want to show up. I want to build bridges. I don't want to be a person because this person had come out and apologized and tried to work through some of this stuff." And I just think in a world where we're so quick to cancel and be so exiling and so punitive, what we need is people to hold each other in their totality. It doesn't mean we condone what someone does that isn't right, but extending ourselves with a posture of reconciliation and our arms open, saying, "Hey, I understand. I'm like you too." This donor that I mentioned that I had to fire, so to speak, and kick out of the community, they called me today and said, "Look, you're right. I'm sorry. Thank you. I want to re-engage. I would always have a heart for that." So I think it was so beautiful to see these filmmakers, come together and reconciling in these ways and opening their hearts towards one another. And I think that happens when we are doing good stuff and when we're breaking bread at events and when we're hanging out with each other. And, this is what our culture is craving so much right now. We need to see ourselves and others and have nuance and understand the incongruence of our humanity and the paradox of our humanity and reach across these different lines of these us and them narratives. And I think that's what movies can be most effective in doing. So
softening hearts and building bridges is our bread and butter. That's what we're meant to be doing with telling stories. Well, thank you so much. And you're doing great work. So congratulations on that.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in for this episode of The Producer's Guide. If you're a fan of this podcast, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share with your friends and family. And if you got any questions about producing, send me a DM on X at Todd_Garner. I want to thank my producer, Steve Delamater. And until next week, I'm Todd Garner. See you then.